I'm Suzanne Murdoch, MD and co-founder of the Hub Newry, and welcome to Series 4 of the Powering Productivity podcast. Each episode, I explore the stories and insights of SME co-working and flexible workspace operators from around the globe, focusing particularly on regional and neighbourhood spaces and the communities that they drive forward. I chat around the inclusivity, genuine connections, clarity and purpose, and positive impacts that they bring. So let's get started. Welcome back to the Powering Productivity podcast for micro business leaders and neighbourhood co-working operators who want to lead with heart, stay people first, and build thriving values-led businesses without burning out. So whether this is your first time you've been listening or you've been with us for a while, you're very welcome. Today, I'm joined by somebody building something very special in the southwest of England. My guest, Stacey Sheppard, founder of Tribe Coworking in Devon, a woman-only, female-led co-working space that's become a creative home for freelancers, founders, and change makers. Stacey is far more than a space operator. She's an award-winning writer, content strategist, and a mentor who has created a supportive hub for women navigating the realities of business, creativity, and motherhood. And her journey as a solo operator really shines the light on both the opportunities and the challenges of running a niche independent co-working space. So I'm hoping in our conversation today, Stacey, we'll explore what it takes to make women-only hubs thrive, how to ride out the ups and downs of things like hot desking and cash flow, and how those personal challenges like balancing work and school holidays can really spark new kinds of innovation. So we'll also ask the bigger question, I know you're keen on discussing this, around how AI and tech really shape traditional jobs. More people are turning to entrepreneurship and how, I guess, co-working spaces like the Tribe can really step in to provide that human support systems that are missing elsewhere. So I can't wait for everyone to hear your story, Stacey, and your insights. So let's dive in.
Well, thank you, Suzanne.
You're very welcome. So give us a quick synopsis, I guess, of how you moved into co-working and what were you doing before that?
Yeah, of course. So my other career is as a writer and content creator. And I was working in Bristol for a publishing company as a assistant editor. When I decided to leave that job, it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I was going to go freelance. This is the future of work. Like, this is where everything's going to go in the future. Like, how did we not know this before? It was just such a revolutionary idea for me. And straight away, I thought, right, I need to write an article about this and I need to pitch it to the national press so that more people are talking about co-working. And so I instantly thought, right, I'll reach out to the president of the International Co-working Association and interview him for this article. And at the time, he was French, and luckily I'd just done a degree in French and German because he said the interview would have to be in French. So I was like, wow, baptism of fire, my first like freelance interview, and it has to be in another language. Great. And then I tried to pitch that article to some publications, and they weren't that interested. I don't think many people understood what it was.
Yeah, that was really new at that time.
Yeah, it was. And so I didn't get any uptake or any interest at all, just a lot of kind of confusion, which baffled me a little bit because I was sure this was the future of work. So I gave up on trying to pitch it and I just thought I'll just join a space because this is what I want to do. So I joined a space in Bristol and so excited when I walked in. I was just like, this is going to be incredible for me. I'm going to meet all these people, make all these connections. I'll network. It'll be amazing. And I walked in and sat down at a desk and just disappointed, really. I just didn't feel the excitement I'd imagined. I was a bit hesitant to sort of like go over and introduce myself to anyone. Everyone was sort of like working away. There was a coffee sort of hour where we could go into one of the smaller offices and all have a chat and a meeting, all the people that were there. And then we were quickly like ushered out again once that time was up. And I just felt a bit like, oh, disillusioned. But I kept going, thinking I will eventually, I'll meet someone and it'll be amazing and I'll become part of this community. But there wasn't really much community there, to be honest. It was just a lot of individual people working on their own things. And then shortly after that, space closed down. So I tried a different one. I tried one that was more creative. And it was better, but it's still, I didn't feel like there was anyone there to sort of like bring me in as a new person. There was no one there to like do that connecting, to make me feel part of something bigger. So I ended up leaving there, and then I moved home to Devon when we decided to have a family. And co-working kind of went on the back burner. I watched it through my design career, writing about design, because I saw the design-led co-working spaces pop up. So I'd like watch WeWork and thought to myself, yeah, absolutely. Why should we work in boring corporate environments? Of course, it should be designed beautifully around our human needs. And then I started to see these women only ones pop up. So like the Wing and Hera Hub, mainly in like New York and some of the bigger cities. And living down here in Devon, I thought, wow, yes, that would be amazing if someone could open something like that here in Devon. That's what we need. And I'd been in WhatsApp groups with some other creative content creators from my industry, while we all tried to figure out what our next step was. We'd got to the point where dancing on TikTok had got less attractive as we thought about it. And we were thinking maybe we need an exit strategy, because we'd all been in influencer marketing for a decade and a half. And we were thinking maybe it's time to think about doing something else. And in this WhatsApp group, we kind of peer coached each other, mentored each other, like shared resources, experience, skills, and we'd all created new businesses. And so that idea of like, oh, women in a virtual room together, sharing all of that, and co-working being so amazing. And then I was thinking, what's my superpower? What am I going to go into next? And I just thought, I'm really good at getting the right people in the room. And then that clicked with me walking into that room when no one getting me together with the other people in co-working. And I was like, wow, maybe I could start a co-working space and get the right people in the room. And it could be women. And those things just sort of like joined in that moment. And I was like, yes, no one else is going to be crazy enough to do this in Devon, but I might just be.
I love that. And when you kind of turn the clock back to around that time, so many people running co-working spaces actually didn't even know, I guess, in a way, what co-working was, because it's evolved so much. And we've all
Mm,
learned, like we set up our space in 2012 quite accidentally.
mm,
And we all learnt with our members together organically, and it evolved organically. You
yeah,
know, no one set out back then for it to be specifically a co-working space, because there wasn't a concept, a description of what
no,
co-working was. It wasn't a defined thing, was it?
no, not at all. And I think that was the problem in the spaces that I went into. It was still individuals working alone in a shared space.
Mm.
And that kind of community element was a bit missing. And I think it probably took the co-working industry a while to realize that having a community manager or someone who is in that role to make introductions, bring people together, make sure there's no one feeling isolated. Because I actually felt more isolated working alone in a co-working space than I did at home,
You kind
because
of
I
feel
could,
awkward, don't you? Not
yeah, because I
necessarily
could
aligned
see
with
the
the other
people I could
members.
talk to. So I felt more alone, because I was like, you're so close, but I can't reach you. I can't, there was just no introduction, and it just felt too confronting to go up to someone and just be like, I'm going to interrupt you now while you're here at work and introduce myself.
It's that difference between
Um,
being lonely and alone.
yes,
Very
yeah,
different concepts.
very different, yeah. So when I decided to open my space, I intentionally, it was a budget concern as well, but I intentionally wanted a small space where people had to sit very close to each other, and it would be impossible not to have a conversation.
Clever. But why women only, and why only creatives?
As a creative myself, I wanted to focus on that because it's the industry that I know. I also thought at the time I wanted to not have too many people who worked in like sales, or who were going to be on calls all the time, because this was pre-pandemic, and I just didn't want loads of the the stress and the hassle that comes with people making calls, because the space was too small. We didn't have Zoom booths. I didn't have space for any of that. I literally just had two small offices, one kind of doubled up as a meeting room, and the other was just our open plan space, and it only had 5 desks in. So people taking calls would have been very disruptive. So I thought I'll narrow it down to creatives, because quite often they're not the ones on calls all the time. And then obviously we had the pandemic and the world changed and everyone was on Zoom all the time. So when we reopened after that, I opened it up to just any women running businesses, whether you're employed, freelancer, self-employed, anything. But the reason I wanted to do it just for women is because going through that process in that WhatsApp group with my colleagues in the industry, I realized that there was a specific kind of support that we needed to give each other. And then the Rose Review, which was commissioned by the British government that NatWest conducted, I think the first one was in 2019. It laid out the 5 main challenges that female entrepreneurs face to starting and growing a business. And I just thought, yeah, we do have those challenges. So it was things like risk aversion. So women, we do take risks, they're just more calculated, but we approach it very differently. We're much less likely to just throw ourselves into risk. Caring responsibilities was another one. And, you know, when you've got kids or you're caring for elderly family members, that definitely impacts your ability to start and grow a business. It was awareness and access to capital and finance. And funny story, when I first opened, it was my first week, I had a lady come in and ask if she could look around. And she said to me, "This is amazing. Did you get funding from Devon County Council to open this?" And I looked at her and I was like, "No." And she said, "Oh, they've got a pot of £100,000 to help people open co-working spaces in rural areas." And I was like, "Sorry, what?" And I couldn't believe it. Like, the thought had never occurred to me to get finance from anywhere other than to like bootstrap it myself. Like, it just, the thought never entered my head and I wouldn't have known where to look. And I just thought, God, I wonder how many other women out there are doing the same thing and just aren't even aware of the fact that you can use someone else's money to start a business. Like, it seems like there are a lot of people out there doing this, and I was completely unaware. So that one really stood out to me. And there were a couple of others, and I just thought, yes, these are definitely barriers that women face. We seem to be all reinventing the wheel. Like, you go on this journey of entrepreneurship, and then at some point you'll discover that there's finance and funding that you can access. And then the next person starts a business and they go on the same journey and then they have to discover it. And I was like, why are we not sharing this information? Why aren't we like coming together? And then I thought, but where would I have found that information out? I don't hang out in any spaces where other women starting and growing businesses are hanging out. And I wasn't going to like the Chamber of Commerce business breakfast or any other kind of incubator, accelerator type organizations because I just didn't feel like I fit there. I didn't like the words that we used, didn't feel like I belonged there.
They can feel a bit corporate, can't they? It's almost a different language that
Yeah.
they talk sometimes.
Yeah. And actually, when I started the space and I was referring to female entrepreneurs, I was getting messages all the time from women saying, "Can I still come? Like, I'm not an entrepreneur." And I was like, "What do you mean you're not an entrepreneur? Didn't you just say you've got your own business?" And they were like, "Yeah, but I'm not an entrepreneur." And then I was like, oh my God, I need to like delve into the language here. Like, what is it that's making women feel like they're not an entrepreneur? You saw a gap in the market, an opportunity, and you have created something to fill that and meet that need. You're solving a problem for someone. You are an entrepreneur. So then I realized I had to do all this like education around what is an entrepreneur, what is entrepreneurship, like, and let women know that actually, yeah, you are like you're allowed to use that word. And so there was a big learning curve there for me at the beginning. And I recognized that I can't solve these barriers. These are societal, systemic, cultural barriers that we are up against. I cannot take responsibility for solving these for women. But I thought, actually, I can do something with the resources I have right now to help mitigate some of these barriers and obstacles. And I thought, you know, risk aversion, if we talk about risk and we have those conversations and we remind each other, well, actually, no, you can do that. Remember all that experience. Oh, imposter syndrome was another one, like the idea that you're not capable or competent or you don't have the necessary skill set. And I thought those are the things that we peer coach each other through. So actually that one we can resolve.
That's exactly what I was about to say, is that whole piece around the juggling the energy and the self-sabotage and not recognizing or owning your strengths. A lot of
Yeah.
people aren't even aware what strengths they have because
No,
they come so naturally to them that only someone else can see that.
absolutely. And then when it is so natural, you don't value it because you would probably never pay for it because it's so natural to you and you don't have to struggle or like kill yourself to do that. And we've got this idea that work has to be hard work. I definitely have this. It has to be hard work. I must hate it. It must be like really difficult. Otherwise, I can't get paid for that. And when it comes so naturally to you, is that even allowed? And there's all those like conditioning things that go around it. And I thought, well, I can't help with childcare because I can't afford a creche next door. I would love that, but I can't afford it. And then I thought, but I could try and make it as flexible as possible. And I could put a school day in where, you know, they don't have to come for a whole day. They could come for school hours, and try and make it so, you know, the cancellation policy wasn't quite as strict as it might have been because, you know, your kids are sick. There's not a lot you can do about it.
Yeah.
So with all of those things, I thought I can do something, and I'd rather do something than nothing. And we'll just give it a go and see how it goes. And I knew when I opened that it was going to be really hard. Like I did the research, I did the market research. I knew that co-working wasn't the most profitable industry that there is. I knew that in a rural location it would be hard. I knew that it would be hard aiming at women. But I really felt like women need this particular infrastructure to fill a gap that currently isn't being filled in a way that they need to receive the support.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. And you touched on being like a rural location. I mean, it's hyper local where you are. How do you go about attracting people from the surrounding towns and villages? I guess there could be there must be quite a lot of tourists around where you are, and I know you prefer to have the residents come into the space.
Mm.
How do you go
Yeah,
about
it's
that?
difficult. I'm in a like in Devon, we've got a work hubs network where all the independent work hubs kind of come together under the umbrella of the economic development department of the council. And this comes up quite a lot because we are in a tourist area. And a lot of the other hubs want to attract that traveling, you know, tourist type client. And I kind of decided that it wasn't really what I wanted to attract, even though it would have brought in more revenue, because I'm really focused on the community, and I really want people that come back again and again, and they bring their skills and they share their gifts with the community. And if they're here once and then they leave, there's not much chance to sort of, you know, like get to know them and build those bonds and get that kind of advocacy that gets going when you know someone really well because you
Yeah.
work with them all the time. And that was a really conscious decision. It might be stupid, I don't know. Maybe I should be trying to attract more of the passing tourist trade. But I really wanted just a super strong community of people who come again and again and again and get to know each other and are advocating for each other in rooms that the other person's not in. But there's definitely probably money on the table there from tourists.
And is there any particular way you went about doing that?
Trying to make the experience that someone has when they come in like really, really good. Like I really go out of my way to make people feel comfortable, welcome. I introduce them to everyone, like make sure they know everybody's names. And it's easier because it is a small space. So we only have 8 desks in the main open plan space. So, you know, even women like us who have brain fog at the moment can hopefully remember like 5 or 6 different
And
names on a given
if
day.
you don't remember, it doesn't matter because we're all in the same boat.
Exactly. Yeah. So I make sure that they feel really welcome. I make sure I have those conversations with them. I find out exactly what they do, what do they need at the moment, what are they looking for, why did they come? What what was the reason that they searched online or wherever to find somewhere like this? Like, what was the need that they have at the moment? Was it loneliness and isolation? Was it that, you know, they're newly hybrid working or remote working from a company? Was it that they've got a small child and they need adult like interaction? I always try and find out like what are their hobbies so that I can tell them that this other member also has this hobby. Maybe you could like do this together. And I really try to be that person. I read in an article once there's a term called a tumbler, and it's a role on a cruise ship is the person who has to like go around and rally everyone in to come into the entertainment area and take part in the activities so that they're not, you know, just one cringy person on stage and a few like random people taking part. Like they're there to like bring that energy. And as soon as I read that, I was like, I need to be the tumbler. I need to be the person who is making sure that people feel like they belong as soon as they step through the door.
I love that. And it's so important. And I think the other thing that we often miss is, well, not necessarily miss, but we forget that we're helping with, is that the benefits of the community that we've got, they don't just help each other with work stuff. They
Yeah.
help each other with so much more, and things
Oh
that are
God,
going on
yeah.
in your family. I don't know, after school activities that kids need and stuff.
Hmm.
There's so much more outside of the work
Yeah,
remit.
at the beginning of the year, I was seriously considering setting up a coffee morning for people going through divorce, because there were a couple of members who were navigating that at the time. And I just thought, do you know what? Like, just you should just get together for coffee and talk about it. Like, there's enough people here now that that could be a support network. And it is, you're right, it's so much more holistic than just business. And
Yeah,
I think that's what I've realized in the last, I think it's only been in the last 3 months really, is that what I'm trying to build, at first, it's changed so much over 5 years. So at first I was like, ooh, offices look awful. They could be design led. We should spend time in beautiful places that make us feel good and not in front of the laundry at home. So I was like, that was the main marketing message, was like, come to this beautiful space. It's biophilic, it's well designed, it will make you feel good. And then we went through COVID, and then I was like, oh no, it was all about the isolation all along. It was the community that we need. And then the longer it's progressed and the more developments that I'm seeing in the world now, it's changing again. And I realized in the last couple of months that actually I'm trying to build this feminist infrastructure that works for women. And the thing that's missing from the existing support structures that we're seeing out there that women need specifically is emotional scaffolding. Like, we need
completely.
we need more. Like, you can give us all the business know-how, the frameworks, and the tell us this is what you do, go away and do this and this. Okay, off you go and do it. And then as a woman, you're like, okay, cool, I now have the knowledge, I'll go and do it. And then you come up against all this stuff as you're trying to implement it, like you say, the imposter syndrome or the risk aversion, or just not noticing your own gifts. And then you have to deal with that, and it will stop you from taking the action while you figure that stuff out. And then you feel like, well, why can't I do it? Why am I the only person who seems not to be able to do this? On Instagram, everyone's like having 6-figure months. Like, why can't I do this? And then I realized that a lot of that traditional business support doesn't provide any emotional scaffolding, and it doesn't provide wraparound support. It's just, here's your 6-week, 12-week boot camp. We're going to dump all the knowledge on you. This is everything you need to do to run a successful business. See you later.
Yeah, just get it done.
Get it done.
It's that whole invisible mental load that's going on in the
Yeah.
background of having to carry all of this. Then you go home
Yeah.
and I don't know, your kids are teenage years, which are pretty anxious, hormonal, and just everything feels like it's coming at you at once.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So some of the women that I work with, they'll come to me, we'll get advice, I'll give them the action plan and say, these are the things that you need to do. And then I'll meet you next month and we'll check in and see how it's gone. And one client, for example, the next message I got from her was that she'd broken her leg in 2 places. Her child had broken both their arms, and she's a homeschooling mum, and now she has to do all of this. So business is on the back burner. Like, she can't continue with the plan as it was
Yeah.
set out for her. And that happens all the time when I'm speaking to women. There's just so much that comes up that they have to deal with emotional labor, or just, family caring responsibilities, that just throws a spanner in the works. And they've got the absolute clarity, they just don't have the time or the resources to implement the stuff that they know they need to do. And that is something that comes up all the time, this lack of availability of time and resources and energy.
And summer holidays thrown at you, a lot of people think, oh, that's great. You know, there's not going to be anyone in the co-working space. I'll get loads done. But it doesn't pan out that way, because you're almost
No.
thrown off kilter by this interruption of routine. The
Yeah.
kids need your help in different ways, whether they're smaller or older. For me, the older they get, the problems just get bigger and more expensive. They
Mm-hmm.
still need you there. And what you think is going to get done during those 6, 10 weeks, 12 weeks here, just doesn't get done. And then you're
No.
mentally, you've got all this baggage from before, that everything's just getting bigger and bigger in your head.
Yeah. And what I realized over the last couple of years is that the barriers that have been identified that women have, for me, running a space designed for women, those barriers get amplified in my business. So me trying to run a co-working space for women, when they have childcare issues, my income is affected. When they say to me at the end of July, see you in September, bye, my income is affected. And it's that difficult balance of trying to be flexible, because a lot of women know they're not going to come in over summer, and a lot of them don't want to pay for a service that they're not able to access. And it can put them off from joining altogether if they're thinking, well, I'm not gonna use it that time. So I'm trying to be flexible to meet their needs, but it definitely impacts my business, and cancellations and things like that, and trying to find that balance between protecting my own business interests but still being flexible enough to actually be of use to women, because I don't want to just create a very masculine system that works for half the population but not the half I'm trying to help. So it's a really difficult thing to navigate.
And is there anything in particular that's worked with regards to cash flow and keeping that continuity going?
So what I realized last year, so we were in a different space from 2020. We survived the pandemic, and then in 2023 I was like, everything's going great, we're on the up now. And then my landlord decided to sell the building, so we had to move. So we were homeless for 6 months, and then when we moved into this new space that we're in now last July, I was like, this is a terrible time for a woman only co-working space to reopen right before the summer holidays. Like, how am I'm going to have like 2 months of just being empty. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, what if that's just a story that I've been telling myself? What if I've convinced myself that summer's always quiet because the women with children don't come? And what if I could change the narrative and maybe change how it pans out? And I suddenly thought to myself, there's loads of women who don't have kids that come here. Like, not everyone has kids. Like, they will need to still keep coming and still keep working. And then I realized that in making that assumption that no one's going to come because the kids are on school holidays, it changed how I was showing up in my business. So I wasn't marketing as much because I just assumed no one's going to come anyway. And I'd sort of like let myself get into that negative spiral of that was then affecting my actions. And I wasn't doing things that I would normally do to encourage more people through. So as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh, okay, I'll just carry on as normal through the summer holidays and keep promoting it and keep talking about it. And we had the best summer we'd ever had.
Wow.
So it definitely made a difference to just keep putting myself out there and keep talking about it and keep reminding women that it's okay to actually have a break if you don't want to be at home with your kids. Like, you can still come here over the summer holidays and it's not selfish, and like just talking to them in that language that they're going to understand, and that really helped.
And often the kids need a break from their mums too.
Yeah.
Aren't we great at telling ourselves these stories?
We really are. And that's why spaces like this, like co-working spaces, are so important, because you can sit at home with all your baggage and your stories as much as you like, but it's only when you get out into the community and you're talking to other people who are doing the things that you're doing but maybe have a different perspective that you can kind of think, oh, actually, yeah, maybe the way I'm talking to myself about it, or the way I'm approaching it, or the way I've always believed it has to be, isn't the only way.
So would you say a big part of your role is coaching, mentoring, even if it's
Yeah,
indirectly?
I resisted it for a really long time. I really did. So when I opened it, it was because I knew that I'd spent 15 years working in the design industry, in media and publishing as a journalist and content creator, telling people's stories. So I had a lot of knowledge around what it takes to build a strong brand, to market it, and then what I'd learned over the years of running my own business, which I've been doing since 2009, all of that knowledge as well. But what I was really conscious of was I didn't want to come in and be like, hey, I do this amazing stuff in this other industry. Come here and I'll show you how to do it. Like, I just didn't want to be that person. So I very consciously decided that I wanted to not talk about that at all. And it was a good few years until people even knew what my background was and what I did. Because I just didn't want to be that person who's like, I've got all the answers, I'll show you, because I didn't have all the answers. I really didn't. I just had some of them. And people would come to me and be like, oh, can you like do a bit of coaching or a bit of mentoring? And I was like, me? No, 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 I can't do that. And then I would refer them on to other people. And it took me a really long time to work out why I wasn't able to do it. And again, I think it just came down to language. When in my mind, a mentor was a middle-aged white man in a suit who had started many successful businesses and exited from them very successfully and made loads of money, and could now tell you his exact framework of how to do it. And that was just what I thought in my mind a mentor is. It's someone who's been there, done that, got all the answers, and can tell you exactly how to do it. And a coach, I didn't really resonate with that either, because they're not supposed to tell you any answers. They're supposed to help you find the answers within yourself. And I like giving advice a bit too much for that. So I was like, oh, I don't know how I can position myself.
Hybrid.
So
You
that
could
was
do a hybrid version.
yeah, it was a big sticking point for a long time. Like, how can I describe myself in a way that feels okay for me to step into that role? So I got there eventually, but yeah, it was a bit of a mission to get there.
But a big part of it is very much the listening element, the deep
Yeah,
listening. And being there,
yeah,
that's having that safe space that micro business owners, creators, they don't get that.
no,
They don't get that time one-on-one to just help make that space in their mind and reflect on what they're doing well, what possibilities there could be out there for them.
yeah. You just feel like you're constantly firefighting, and
Yeah.
taking that time out to actually discuss the business and how you feel
Yeah.
often is just neglected.
I'm conscious of time here, and I really want to cover the whole AI
Mm,
entrepreneurship side of things that I know you've been talking about a lot lately, and how the traditional jobs market is being affected a lot by AI, and certainly
mm,
a lot of women are moving into entrepreneurship, and there's not necessarily that support network there for them. Tell
no,
me
not
a
at
little
all.
bit about what you've been talking about lately, and how co-working can really help with those
Yeah.
network and nurture systems.
So I've been a bit frustrated over the last few years, because there's been a lot of research and a lot of reports coming out from various governments highlighting the fact that there's no pathway to entrepreneurship. And I get it. It feels like there's no pathway, because if you want to be an engineer, you go to university and you do that. If you want to be a hairdresser, you might go and do your apprenticeship or whatever. If you want to start your own business, it's a bit like, where do you go? Like, where do you go? There doesn't seem to be a central hub. And here in the Southwest, we've got the heart of the Southwest Growth Hub. But again, it's not something that a single woman I've encountered who comes here has ever heard of. So there's a bit of a mismatch on like how we find the pathway, if it does exist. And I really believe that co-working spaces are the pathway to entrepreneurship, because they're full of people who are somewhere on that pathway. They've found their way to a co-working space, but they've also navigated part of the path, and they might meet someone who's further down the path, and you can find yourself on the path in a co-working space. And then with AI coming up, so when ChatGPT came out in November 2022, I had instant alarm bells going off. As soon as I heard about it, I was like, oh no, this is going to be the death knell for my career. Like, I'm a writer and content creator, and I'm typing stuff into this thing, and it's coming back in record time with some like pretty decent output. I was like, who's going to pay me anymore to do this for them when it takes me much longer? It costs much more, and the output, you can get pretty decent output. So I started experimenting with it. And the first experiment I ran was to see basically if it could be me, and what marketing advice it would give to someone like my customers who come into the co-working space. And very quickly my mind was blown, and I realized, this is excellent. This is really, really good. And then I went away and thought about it, and I thought, hang on, it's only really good because I've got 20 years of experience and I knew what to put in. I knew what to write as a prompt, because I have all that background knowledge and experience. And then I thought about my customers that come here, and I was like, they're not going to be able to write a prompt like I could write a prompt, because they don't know anything about marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So then I realized, okay, AI in the hands of experts is incredible and it can amplify everything. AI in the hands of someone who doesn't know what they're doing is only going to get you so far, or could even be a bit detrimental. And I just instantly saw the reticence of women in my community to embrace it and to experiment with it and to use it. And there were a lot of things coming up like, oh, but the environmental impact is terrible. I don't want to do anything that's going to destroy the environment. or privacy and data and ethics, like this is dodgy ground here. I'm not sure I want to engage in something that's, got no guardrails, and it feels like it could be a bit of a minefield. And there was just a lot of fear and a lot of hesitation around using it. And also that idea that you're cheating. Like, a lot of women feel like you're cheating because it's not you haven't struggled, it's not
Yeah,
hard,
that's
like
really
you.
true.
Yeah, totally. And also, I don't think that men and women would be treated the same for using the technology. I think there's a bit of a difference in perception about how women would use it and men would use it, and how we might be judged for that. And so there were a lot of reasons for women to not use it. But I thought, you know what, the gender gap's already so huge. It's like massive, and it's not going to close for decades and decades. And if we now let AI come in and women aren't using it and men are using it, that gap's going to be exponential. We're never going to close it. We will literally never close it. And then we talk about training the model, and we don't. I mean, I don't know what world anyone else wants to live in, but I don't want to live in a world where it's only those tech bros from Silicon Valley that are training models up. And I don't want to live in that world, and all that kind of like toxic bro marketing. And yeah, I just feel like a woman's perspective on the world and how we operate in the world and the kind of world we want to create is very different. Um, and we need to make sure that women are using this new technology, because it is going to define the world that we're moving into. So without our input, we're just abdicating any responsibility for what that world's going to look like. And so I think we have to get involved.
And like you say, women can bring a whole different human emotional perspective
Yeah,
and interpretation as well
yeah, yeah. We
on things.
often take everybody into account, everybody's needs. Like, that's what makes us good caregivers, is that you're always looking out for everyone. Is anyone being left behind? How is this affecting anyone? Is this just? Is this fair? Is this equal? Like, we have that wider perspective that is often missed in business. And I think we really need to bring that to the table. And if we're not involved in using AI, building the new AI systems, training the models, that's just going to get missed entirely.
Yeah.
And we're just
The
going to
other
end
thing,
up reinforcing the structures that we've already got that aren't working for everybody.
yeah, completely. And the other thing that I encounter more and more is those entrepreneurs, you don't know what you don't know. If you don't
Yeah,
know something, you don't know something about it, it can be quite detrimental. Um,
absolutely.
so the likes of co-working spaces and the communities there are really good at bringing things to the forefront, as
Mm-hmm.
can AI.
Yeah.
If you know what
It can be
prompts
an
to put in.
incredible tool. It can do
Yeah.
so much good in this world, but we have to decide that's how we're going to use it. And I do think that when you look at the people who are in charge of building it, fueling it, like bringing it in, I'm not sure they've got all our best intentions at
But
heart.
life's not a manual either, is it? It's very bespoke to everybody, to every industry, to every
Mm.
entrepreneur's business, to each individual personality.
Absolutely. But I think, like you say, there's a lot of people who don't know what's happening. They don't see what's coming. I love research, so I always go deep. Like, I listen to all the podcasts, like read all the articles. I'm on page
Yeah.
like 50 of Google looking for what I can find. Um, and I just feel like there's so many people just going about their daily life, doing their normal jobs, not knowing how this could affect us. And the fact that like that entry level pipeline is already being affected. Like, there's graduates now who are coming out of university and the entry level jobs just aren't there because employment freezes have gone on at some of the bigger companies that would have traditionally employed all these graduates. They're now looking at how they can use AI instead to do those entry level jobs. So we're going to have record levels of unemployed graduates. And then what are they going to do? Like, if the jobs aren't there and they can't get a job, what are they going to do? They're going to need to do something themselves. They're going to need to turn to entrepreneurship. And they're going to need to start thinking, like, what do I want to set up? And then they'll be stuck on that exact same question: is what's the pathway to entrepreneurship? How do I get into this?
It's this
And
vicious
so,
circle.
yeah. And so I just, in my mind, like, we need to start joining the dots and like joining up that business support that's available out there, the co-working infrastructure that's already there. The infrastructure's in place. There are co-working spaces all over the world waiting, ready. The infrastructure is there. They just need to funnel the people who are out there looking for the pathway to that first point on the pathway. And if the first point was your local co-working space, and there are co-working spaces in all kinds of niches. There are co-working spaces that help social entrepreneurs, that help women, that help creatives, that help makers, that help technologists, that help IT people. Like it's there, the infrastructure exists. But we really need to work together, I think, with the funding bodies, the local councils, the government, to like join it all up. And so that pathway is visible, that everybody knows. You leave school, you leave college, you leave university, you want to start your own business, go to your local co-working space, who can be the signposter that can tell you where all those other support organizations are. And there's so much replication out there. There's so many fully funded business courses. They're all doing the same thing. And to me, that is just such a huge waste of money. And there is no aftercare. There's just no wraparound care. And it exists already in co-working spaces.
And those things that already exist in terms of the business plans are very, very generic. You know, it's not a one size fits all box.
No.
And it's also not just incubators and accelerators that can be there. You know, there's all sorts of co-working spaces. And you're right, that network is phenomenal in terms of richness.
It's so
and
underused.
Size.
It's so underused. I literally can't understand how anyone can look at it and just not see the potential.
Absolutely. Well, we're out of time. Thank you so much for your time, Stacey. It was so interesting.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So that's it for today's episode. Huge thank you for sharing all of that information so openly into, I guess, the realities of running Tribe Coworking and micro business. If you'd like to learn more about Stacey's business or anything we've talked about, all the links will be in the show notes. And if this conversation resonated for you, whether you're running your own neighborhood co-working space or carrying the invisible load as a micro business owner, I'd really love to hear from you. And you might like to connect with me and get my free guide, 7 Signs You're Carrying Too Much. And I'll put a link in the show notes for that as well. Connect on LinkedIn or on the Hub News website. And let's really keep this conversation going about building people first, heart-led spaces where people can truly thrive. Thank you. Don't forget that all the episodes and links are out there on our website, thehubnewry.com. While you're there, you can stay tuned in with what we're up to by joining our newsletter and subscribing to Powering Productivity on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for being here. Powering Productivity is presented by me, Suzanne Murdoch, and produced by Emily Crosby Media.